Hello guys, and welcome back to another video, and today I'm going to be redrafting the 2017 NHL entry draft. Now I have done a video of this caliber about 6 months ago on the 2016 NHL draft, but now we're another season away, which means it's time to move another draft forward to the 2017 one. And in this mock draft, redraft, I have taken all the picks every single round, and I picked my top 20 players and ranked them, basically. So let's get straight into it, starting off in opposite order at number 20. And at number 20 in the 2017 NHL draft, I have Eli Tolvanen being drafted, right winger from the Nashville Predators. Eli Tolvanen this season, although his offensive numbers may have gone down a bit, he is still a very solid third line guy, and he has proven that time in, time out. Last year, again, he had like 20 points in 40 games. This year it's gone down, but I'm sure they'll go back up with age. But yeah, Eli Tolvanen, he finds himself all the way up at number 20 on this redraft. He was also originally drafted 30th overall, so he did move up a bit. But now moving on to number 19, being drafted at number 19 is left winger from the Anaheim Ducks, Maxime Comtois. Maxime Comtois is an interesting case because this year, man, his numbers have been so bad. He's been like putting up horrible numbers. Not horrible, he's been putting up fourth line numbers when he's not supposed to be a fourth line guy. He's supposed to be a guy who scores a lot, like he showed last year when he led the Ducks in scoring, and who can just like put up those solid numbers, and he just has not been able to do that this season. He was originally drafted in the second round, 50th overall, so he could have been seen as a steal last year. This year, though, he's really proven that maybe he's not, but once again, I hope the best for him, and he's on this list because I still think he's ahead of Eli Tolvanen, because I still think that he can be that player that he was last year, but as of right now, he drops actually down to 19, where he would have been higher last year, but oh well. But now moving on to 18, and being drafted at 18 is right winger from the Philadelphia Flyers, Owen Tippett. Owen Tippett, originally drafted in Florida, has not really panned out. He was an early first round pick, went 10th overall, and his career has just like, he's shown that he can be good in the AHL. He's shown that he can put up great numbers. He actually did recently with 18 points in 12 games, but that NHL just hasn't panned out. The transition hasn't panned out. And he's only been putting up just like Comtois, but just like fourth line numbers. And I know that he's capable of doing more. I believe in him. And this change of scenery to Philadelphia might help him a lot for his future, because he'll get more opportunity in Philadelphia that he was not getting in Florida due to their very much depth. But Philadelphia, apparently he's played well. The points don't show it, but we'll see. I hope the best for him. But he falls in 18. He actually manages his way in the top 20 still. Moves down a bit though. But now on to number 17. And at number 17, being drafted, I have defenseman from the Buffalo Sabres, Henri Jokiharju. I hope I said that right. Jokiharju this season has put up about average offensive numbers for his standards, but he has been very good defensively this year. His defensive numbers over his career are not looking good, and they're not going to look good when you're on Buffalo. But this year, he's been pretty solid. He's been a pretty solid top 4 guy for Buffalo. He's been playing a lot of minutes and defending against some of the best guys and managing to put up a higher plus-minus than most of the people on his team. So when there's a difference like that, then plus-minus I feel like can be used to an extent. And in Henri Jokiharju's case, I think it can. When you see all these minus 20s, minus 30s, and then he's like only a minus 4, and he's playing like 21 minutes a game. That's pretty solid for Henri Jokiharju. So yeah, but now moving on to number 16, and at the 16th overall pick in this draft, I have Alexander Texier from the Columbus Blue Jackets, who's a centerman. I said that in a very weird order, but he gets drafted at 16th, and in 36 games this season, he's put up a solid 20 points, showing that he's capable of putting up some solid offensive numbers, because for years, with Alexander Texier, it was like, okay, he's been putting up fourth line numbers, but it looks like he can be better. And this year, he's shown that he's capable of being better offensively, and you love to see it. You love to see it pan out in Columbus. He was originally a second round, 45th overall pick, and a solid second round pick at that, as he moves all the way up to number 16 on my list. And yeah, so let's go. Now moving on to number 15, and being drafted at 15th in this redraft, I have left winger from the Ottawa Senators, Alex Formenton. Formenton has really come around the season, putting up 28 points in 65 games. He was originally a second round pick, obviously in 2017, but years prior, he showed, again, sort of like a lot of these players, that he could be capable of doing more. And a lot of Ottawa Senators fans were like believing him. I'd hear it from him all the time. But we're here now where he's putting up some solid third line numbers. He's playing solid for Ottawa. I'm sure he's probably on their second line or something because of their lack of depth. Probably. I mean, they're still rebuilding a bit. But really, Alex Forment has come around and showing that he can be a pretty solid forward. Moving on to 14, and being drafted at 14, I have defenseman from Toronto, Timothy Liljegren. Timothy Liljegren right now, in 47 games, has a goal, 16 assists for 17 points, and has really shown that he can be that capable top 4 defenseman. In fact, he's actually been a top 2 defenseman for Toronto the last little while because he's been playing on the first pairing with Morgan Riley. So that might help his offensive numbers a little bit, actually. But either way, he's been pretty solid defensively, and he's shown that he is capable of being a very good NHL defenseman. After last year, he wasn't too impressive, but this year he's really been showing why. Really proven himself, and hence why he's actually on the first pairing right now. But now moving on to the 13th overall pick. And the 13th pick in this draft, I have going to right winger from the Edmonton Oilers, Kael Yamamoto. Kael Yamamoto right now is producing at a half point per pace, but the thing is, he has actually been scoring at a high rate lately. He has like 8 goals in his last 10 games. It's something crazy. And like 12 points, 13 points in his last 10. He's been on fire right now after he was like, because last season was a rough year for him. It might have been a sophomore slump, you know, it happens. But this year, it looked like he wasn't coming out of that. And I was like, oh, maybe this is what he is. Because he had a dominant performance his first year in the NHL. He had like a point per game for about 27 games. But yeah, he had a really slump. And this year, it looked like that was going to continue. But as of recently, it's been amazing. And he was the guy who was originally drafted 22nd overall. And it's turned out to be a pretty solid draft pick, despite him only being 5'6". So size doesn't matter. But moving on to number 12, and at number 12, I'm being drafted right winger from the Carolina Hurricanes, Martin Necas. Martin Necas, interestingly enough, was drafted in the exact same position in the 2017 draft, but in 61 games, he has put up 32 points, which is a little bit lower for him than usual. He's normally put up some very solid offensive totals, as his career stats would show you. That a half point per game is a little bit disappointing, but he's been heating up as of recently, and he's a guy who I think when it all is said and done, he will be a top 6 forward for the Carolina Hurricanes, as he was last year and the year before. This year's just a bit of a down year, but yeah, Martin Necas, a very solid top 6 guy. And now moving on to number 11, and being drafted at 11, I have centerman from the Ottawa Senators, Josh Norris. Josh Norris is a very good goal scorer. He manages to put up a lot of goals, and honestly, I wanted to put him higher so bad, but it was like the top 10 is just so good in this draft that I couldn't. But he was originally drafted 19th overall, obviously was part of that San Jose trade, that Erik Karlsson trade to San Jose. So that ended up being a very good return for them. But Josh Norris, in 49 games, has 26 goals. In 108 games, 43. Like I said, this guy, he just knows how to score. And I think I'm sorry that he's not in the top 10, but this close. But now moving on into the top 10, and cracking the top 10 is goaltender from the Dallas Stars, Jake Oettinger. Jake Oettinger, throughout his whole career, has been a pretty solid goaltender, like in 65 games, a .914, pretty solid. This year he's been a bit better than that career average, just a little bit, but this is a guy who I think in the future will be a very good goaltender and definitely a starter. He already is a starter, but like definitely I think he has the potential to be a top goalie in the league. He's just been that good. And really, this is the start of a long chain of Dallas Stars draft picks in this draft because they did a really good job in this draft. This draft was dominated by Dallas and Ottawa. But we're going to move away from Dallas and Ottawa because at going number 9th in the 2017 draft, I have centerman from Vancouver, Elias Pettersson. Elias Pettersson this year, it has been a bit of a down year, but he'll bounce back, I'm sure of it. Every year we say that, every year, and it doesn't happen, but I'm saying it this year. He will bounce back next year, I think. Go back to that point per game player that he is, as he's shown he is in the second half of the season, because that first half of the season really sunk his stats. Really, the Travis Green. Since they got rid of Travis Green, things have gotten a lot better. That's pretty much the storyline. And that's actually a storyline for a lot of Vancouver Canucks players. But he was originally drafted 5th overall, so a very early pick. And 9th, you know, it's not much of a bump down. He still turned out to be a very good player. But moving on to number 8, and being drafted at number 8, I have centerman from the New Jersey Devils, Nico Hischier. Now, Nico Hischier was obviously the first overall draft pick of this draft class, but I don't think he's turned out badly, despite dropping all the way down to number 8. Now, he's definitely not your franchise guy. Maybe, I don't even think he was seen as a franchise guy during the draft. But he still ended up being a very good player. He has 47 points in 57 games and has really been heating up lately. He had a slow start to the season, but like I said, lately he's been putting up some very good offensive totals, a lot of goals. And yeah, I think he's a guy who will end up, in the long run, he'll be a very good second-line center behind Jack Hughes. But now moving on to number 7, and at number 7 I have another player from Dallas. Like I said there would be, and there's still another one coming up. but it is defenseman Miro Heiskanen. Miro Heiskanen right now in 52 games has 4 goals, 25 assists for 29 points, and these are some solid offensive numbers. I think he might have been expected to do a little more considering how early in the draft he was taken. But really, I think that this is solid, and he's been very good defensively, and I'm sure those offensive numbers, those stud offensive numbers, will come. But really, all that matters right now is you see like he's playing solid. Next year, he'll get the power play quarterback with John Klingberg not playing. I very highly doubt. Well, they're not going to re-sign him. He already asked for a trade, and his contract's up, so he's definitely not going back to Dallas. But Miro Heiskanen, I think his offensive numbers will go up next year. He's been very fantastic defensively this year, playing on that first pairing, eating up a lot of minutes. But now moving on to number 6, and at number 6, I have centerman from the St. Louis Blues, Robert Thomas. And Robert Thomas this season has been a assist beast. You know, he's been putting up assists like a madman. He could get 60. He could get 60, and he's a guy who's like had a down year last year, and he got a cheap contract, only $2.5 million for this guy, like only $2.5 million, and for next year too. So he's been fantastic, and he was also a late first-round pick, so he has definitely turned out well for the St. Louis Blues. But now moving on to number 5, and at number 5, I have centerman Nick Suzuki. Nick Suzuki this year was looking like a down year, as everyone on Montreal, but really since they brought in Martin St. Louis, he has been a lot better. Same with Caulfield, same with like everybody. I guess Dominic Ducharme was just horrible, or St. Louis is the greatest coach in the world, or both. But either way, Nick Suzuki's been playing fantastic, and he was obviously a 13th overall pick, and I think that he's panned out extremely well. He has 49 points in 66 games, which is a lot better than it looked only, let's say, 3 weeks ago. So again, really since Martin St. Louis took over. But now moving on to number 4, and at number 4 we have another Ottawa player, because there were a lot of Ottawa players on this list. This is the third one and the last one, and that is right winger Drake Batherson. And man, what a steal this guy was. 4th round pick, 121st overall, and he has been fantastic. Like this year, his career stats may not look amazing, but in this season, he has been over a point per game and just been he's really prominent when he's in that Ottawa lineup. You can tell that when he was injured and when he was out, Ottawa was suffering a bit. And honestly, they're still suffering a bit now. But with Drake Batherson in, you can just tell that he's there, and it really helps Ottawa Senators, even though they still might not be winning a lot of games. But that's just a matter of they're still coming out of a rebuild. But now moving on to the top 3, and cracking the top 3 is goaltender from the Boston Bruins, Jeremy Swayman. Jeremy Swayman has put up a .930 in his career. His career save percentage is a .930 in the NHL. And I don't care that his numbers weren't great in the AHL in the few games he played. He had a .930 at the NHL. And this season, he has a .925 in the majority of his games, in 31 games of the 41. So really, he has been fantastic. And this is a guy who in the future, we could see winning the Vezina. And honestly, if he had more starts this year, I think there would be more Vezina talk about him. But because he hasn't had as many starts and Igor Shesterkin exists, you know, that kind of hurts his chances. But next year, this is definitely a guy, and in the future, who I think we could see winning a Vezina. And he was also a 4th round pick, which is interesting, but that's how it usually is with goalies. A lot of goalies who are drafted in the late rounds end up being, or a lot of NHL goalies are drafted in the late rounds. That's just how it is with goalies, because with goalies, you really never know. But with Jeremy Swayman, now he's definitely panned out and become an amazing goaltender for the Boston Bruins. But now moving on to the top 2, and there are 2 players left, Kael McCarren and Jason Robertson. We all know who's number 1, I think, even though as much as I love Jason Robertson, he still has to go number 2, and is finalizing the Dallas Stars' run of 3 picks in the top 10. Yep, they had a pretty good 2017 draft. But Jason Robertson, left winger from Dallas, has been fantastic this year. Last year he had a great year, and this year's maybe some people were expecting a sophomore slump. I wasn't, because I put him on my fantasy team, and I was right, because man, he's been over a point per game this season. And what a steal by Dallas! Like a 2nd round pick, like Dallas's first 3 picks of the 2017 draft were Miro Heiskanen, Jake Ottinger, and Jason Robertson. Like, what? 3 picks? That's amazing. And Jason Robertson, man, this guy is an absolute stud. He's like the fastest Dallas player to score to 30. It was like, I don't even know, was it since a certain date or ever? But man, this guy's amazing. And that Joe Pavelski, Ropa Hintz line, Jason Robertson, one of the top in the league. And yeah, so Jason Robertson sadly could not get number 1, because at number 1, he's just too good. It's defenseman from Colorado, Kael McCarren. Kael McCarren, over a point per game this year, might win the Norris between him and Roman Josi, I think, the most. But he's a guy who has just been putting up offensive numbers the entire time. And not only is he great offensively, but he's great defensively, and he plays so many minutes for the Colorado Avalanche. And I think if I had to pick who's the best defenseman in the league just overall, not just this season, it has to be Kael McCarren. Like, you look at his entire career. Like, in his entire career as a defenseman, he has over 8 points per game. That's insane. When's the last time we've seen that? I feel like we haven't seen defensemen consistently be over a point per game in forever. And Kael McCarren is doing that, like, consistently. As much as Roman Josi is having a fantastic year, we're just going to avoid that for now so that I can just talk about how amazing Kael McCarren is, because, man, this guy is insane and has definitely earned #1 on this list. And it's not even close. Even though Jace Robertson is a fantastic player, Kael McCarren is just like, he's the McDavid of defensemen. It's not even, it's not close as much as I love Jason Robertson. But yeah, thank you guys for watching if you are still here. And I hope you liked the video. I haven't done one of these in a while. I felt a little bit rusty. There's probably going to be a lot of cuts. I was kind of saying some random stuff. So I hope it did turn out well still. But I do plan on doing a mock draft soon. So I'm moving from a redraft to a mock draft. And I'm excited to do the mock draft because I haven't looked at the prospects in a while. But yeah, so thank you guys for watching if you're still here. And yeah, hopefully I see you in the next video. See ya. Morning. Oh yeah, I'm recording this at like early in the morning, but that's okay. Oh, move it.